jodido con esto de la gripe y estas cosas. Lo he estado pasando mal estos días, pero bueno, en fin, ahora me estoy recuperando. Así que nada, os traigo un juego nuevo, se llama Chernobyl de VR. Es más una especie de documental que un juego en sí. Es más para ver qué pasó en Chernobyl el día ese que hubo la catástrofe nuclear en la central nuclear esta de Ucrania. Y nada, es como un documental, así que nada, vamos a verlo, a ver qué tal funciona, ¿no? Venga, vamos para allá. Muy bien, chicos, pues ya estamos aquí, ¿vale? Vamos a ver el tour por Chernobyl a ver qué tal. Muy bien, pues ya nos encontramos aquí en la ciudad de Pripyat, que es la ciudad a 3 kilómetros de la central nuclear. Pues mirad, aquí podemos ir a varios sitios, ¿no? A ver, Minsk, el hospital. Muy bien, pues vamos a ver primero, por ejemplo, yo que sé. Vamos a ver el pueblo.
In order to understand how people had lived before and what happened to these houses which are located in Parishev, I suggest that you go and see a house which hasn't had owners for more than 29 years. Soon it's going to be 30 years.
Ajá, nos va a enseñar el pueblo.
Soon after the explosion, the authorities ordered the evacuation of all people within 30 kilometers of the plant. Over 130,000 people from the surrounding towns and villages had to leave their homes. Some of the residents have returned and have been living in these abandoned places to this day. Parishev village.
Vamos a ver la planta nuclear.
Nuclear power plant.
Aquí vemos la sala de control. Ajá, aquí la tenéis. Esto es la sala de control.
The control room of the RBMK-1000 reactor. It is here where the experiment of an emergency shutdown of the reactor number 4 was carried out. Find the interactive elements to find out what happened on the tragic night of the 26th of April 1986. The main reason for the explosion of the reactor number 4 was its unsuccessful safety drill. Poor decisions and faulty construction caused the reactor's power level to plummet to 30 megawatts. To correct this mistake, the control rods were removed. They were able to increase the power to the intended 200 megawatts, but consequently lost control of the reactor. Within 3 seconds, the power increased to 530 megawatts, and in the next 27 seconds to 30 gigawatts, which was 100 times over its maximum capacity. None of the security systems withstood the tremendous increase in pressure, which destroyed the fuel channels and the cooling system pipes. The melted nuclear fuel dropped into the water, which in 13 seconds caused a huge explosion of steam. As a result of the water electrolysis, another bigger explosion of hydrogen followed.
Pues vaya.
Chernobyl nuclear power plant. More than 900 employees from 24 countries are involved in building the new safe confinement. The top priority is their safety. Each employee carries 2 dosimeters. One shows the current radiation level and the second counts the total dose received. In case of exceeding the permitted levels, an employee is immediately moved away from work in the danger zone.
Vale, pues esto se ve que es el sarcófago nuevo que han hecho para tapar el reactor, que ese es el antiguo, creo, el que debe haber ahí puesto, y han construido un sistema de raíles para mover el nuevo sarcófago y tapar pues el antiguo, ¿no? Porque el antiguo estaba ya que se estaba ya pudriendo, digamos, ¿vale? Pues ya lo veis, ¿no? Qué pasada de montaje, ¿no?
The old sarcophagus, which is a concrete
bunker,
was to secure nearly 300 tons of various kinds of radioactive substances, including thorium, dust, uranium and plutonium. The concrete construction was supposed to prevent the radioactive particles from escaping into the air or groundwater. Due to the lack of time and the technical limitations during the construction process, the sarcophagus becomes unstable and fails to fulfill its task. Fortunately, The construction of the new technologically advanced sarcophagus is almost complete. The construction of the new sarcophagus started in the mid-90s. Its purpose is to tightly cover the old decrepit sarcophagus above the reactor number 4. After finishing the construction, the new sarcophagus will be placed on the top of the old one, and the machines inside will dismantle the old collapsing structure. The long process of utilizing radioactive waste will begin.
Bueno, volveremos para allí. Vamos a ver qué más encontramos por aquí. Kiev, swimming pool. Vamos a la piscina. Venga.
The Azure swimming pool was a pride of the city. It was built in 1970 and it had served the residents until the day of the explosion at the power plant. It had a pool and a gym.
Bueno, pues poco más, ¿no? Que ver aquí.
Diving platform. Gym. After the explosion in 1986, the pool was used by the liquidators and the power plant employees. It was finally closed in 1998.
Vale, pues nada, esto es la parte de arriba de la piscina. Vamos al gimnasio.
At the gym, they held physical education lessons in sport competitions for children from the nearby school number 3.
Como veis aquí no ha quedado nada de esto. Obviamente.
Back to Pripyat.
Vamos a Pripyat, que es el pueblo, ¿no? Donde ya estábamos. Esto es Pripyat. Ya lo veis, que es donde estábamos.
Community Center.
Vamos para allí.
The Energetic Community Center was a modern recreation facility with an auditorium, a sports hall, a cafe and a disco. In front of the center, there was also Lenin's monument. However, it hasn't survived.
Vamos al hall
of the community center. In this place, the cultural life of Pripyat was bursting. To find out more, listen to the stories of the guide.
Vale, pues nada. Esto pues te está enseñando infraestructuras de Pripyat. Lo que había por aquí para la gente. Ah, mira, aquí tenemos al colega que nos está explicando.
The Energetic Community Center was the center of the cultural life of Pripyat. Almost all mass events were held here. Weddings, birth registration of newborns, wedding parties, party and union meetings, and numerous concerts.
Todo lo que hacían aquí.
Back then, many people were coming here. The hall, which you can see now, used to be a disco club. A disco was organized at the weekends, as the town was full of many young people. The average age was 28, so the disco was always crowded. People had fun and felt good there. Sometimes I just want to believe that the social life there, in the next room, in the hall, is still ongoing. I remember very well the day when we first found out about it. It was rumored, as you could not talk about it in the Soviet Union. We immediately felt that this subject was a taboo. We seemed to find out about it quite accidentally. As I am from Lviv, we could listen to some European radio stations, so we heard about it just because Sweden released this information, and then it reached us as rumors. So my mom and I still remember how it was, just day by day. We learned about it on the 2nd of May 1986. For example, the tragedy occurred on the 26th of April 1986, and we found out as late as the 2nd of May. We were in Carpathian Mountains. We never liked attending those demonstrations with banners of Lenin, "Hail to Communism." We never liked doing it. We escaped to Carpathian Mountains and were there on May holidays. So on the 2nd of May, we learned about the tragedy. We were together. My mom was with our friend. The four of us arrived to Lviv immediately. I remember that everyone was asked to do wet cleaning in the house every day. Only then doctors began to warn against coming out into the streets and about taking a lot of medicines with iodine. And I remember exactly that we applied iodine around our necks to prevent the radiation effect. And the tragedy is, and you realize it only now, that the Soviet system really neglected people, and not just Ukrainians. It is unfair to say that only Ukraine suffered, as the cloud went to Belarus. And the real contempt to people was that on the 26th of April, we learned about it on the 2nd of May. People knew nothing and no one told anything. Moreover, the information was banned. Firemen involved in the fire extinguishing at Chernobyl were not even informed about the radioactive explosion. They were sent to extinguish the regular fire. They were young boys. One of them, Volodymyr Pravnik, 24 years old, died. He died tragically. He received a lethal dose of radiation, just as many other boys, the first volunteers, who rushed to extinguish the fire. My mom can remember a lot of volunteers who rushed to save everything, to help and rescue people. The guy I mentioned was taken to Moscow. His mother had to go to Moscow, where she was told at the train, "You are not allowed to say anything here, you must be silent." In 11 days, the guy died on his mother's hands. So he was buried, and even his body was not taken back to Ukraine. That's how the Soviet authorities were hiding all the information. There were many victims, as this radioactive cloud was not like rain, it immediately spread over the large areas. The most of the information was only learned after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Since 1986 until the end of the Soviet Union, we could only guess and exchange the information between each other. No one knew what really happened. Moreover, people kept speaking secretly about the committed crimes and about the people who were sent to death.
Pues muy bien, ¿no? School number
Elementary
3.
school number 3.
Coño. Mira, con la Unión Soviética aquí. Vale, pues sí. A ver, ¿qué nos cuenta?
Indoctrination was a crucial element of the education. From early on, children were taught about the creators of communism, the leading role of the party, and the foundations of the socialist society. The teachers instilled a total submission of the individual and the collectivization of the actions. Such classrooms were indispensable in all the republics of the Soviet Union or the countries of the Eastern Bloc, such as East Germany or Poland. Walk around and learn more about the education in the Soviet Union. Mathematics was the basis on which the technical development of the Soviet Union was built. As early as primary school, the smartest pupils, supervised by their teachers, developed their skills in sciences. The best of them attended secondary schools and later went to renowned universities to become scientists or engineers. Nevertheless, it did not prevent the Russians from building a malfunctioning nuclear reactor, which construction was based on the solutions designed for the production of mass destruction weapon, not civilian applications. If you find an entrance to the long corridor, you'll get to know the history of the Cold War. Somewhere in here, you will find a wooden case. Open it carefully. Shortly after the Second World War, in which the USA and the Western countries fought against the Soviet Union and the countries of the Eastern Bloc, the Cold War began. It meant a rising tension between the USA and the Soviet Union without a direct aggression from any of those countries. It led to the arms race and the large-scale production of mass destruction weapon. The fallout shelters were built, and every public building, including schools and kindergartens, had warehouses with gas masks for the whole staff and the students. At the end of April 1986, shortly before the catastrophe, the whole city was preparing for the International Labor Day. As usual on the 1st of May, a pompous march was to take place to honor the working class of the Soviet Union. Nowadays, few people may remember that it was established in 1889 by the socialist parties of the United Kingdom, France, Germany and Belgium in memory of the bloodily repressed workers' demonstrations in Chicago in 1886. It's a different place. This is a gym of the school number 3. Various sporting events were held here. Every day, physical education classes were carried out. Children could play football, basketball. There were even some sorts of stands where students could cheer on their teams and their rivals as well. And it was always popular. Football, volleyball, basketball were one of the most common and popular types of games that were practiced in all schools. Not only school, but also the town competitions and other events were held here. Afterwards, students traveled to Kiev, the province, and other regions of Ukraine. Now we will see a different place. Community Center.
bonito aquí, el museo del parque. Aquí es gente que... Supongo que esos son testimonios.
One day when we came to the lab, it was on the 29th of April, we noticed that our detectors counted a lot of impulses. We were very worried and even scared that something had happened, an accident, that some kind of radioactive contamination took place in the lab. We couldn't figure out where it came from. It could be that our electronic system failed in some way, or our impulse registration system were broken. Different assumptions were talked over for a few days. It was only from unofficial sources like Radio Free Europe or Voice of America we heard about the accident in Chernobyl. Then we started to wonder what it was that our detectors really counted.
Muy bien.
Fled. Attention, attention. Dear comrades, the City Council of People's Deputies reports on the unfavorable radiation situation in the town of Pripyat in connection with the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power
que envió el gobierno soviético a la población por radio.
The party, government bodies and military units are taking all necessary measures. However, in order to ensure a complete safety of the people, and children in particular, there is a temporal need to evacuate the residents to settlements in the Kiev region. To do this, today on the 27th of April, starting at 2 p.m, buses accompanied by the militia officers and the representatives of the city executive committee will be directed to each residential house. It is recommended to take your documents, absolutely essential items and some food. The managers of enterprises and institutions have assigned employees who will remain in place to ensure the normal functioning of the city's businesses. All residential houses will be guarded by the militia officers for the period of evacuation. Comrades, as you leave your homes temporarily, please do not forget to close the windows, turn off the electrical and gas appliances, and close the water taps. Please maintain peace, self-discipline, and order during the temporary evacuation. Most of the flats in Pripyat are empty. Single seats, sofas, and other furnishings were preserved only in few of them. When it became obvious that Pripyat would be a ghost town forever, several actions were organized during which the residents could take the most necessary things from their flats.
Que solo se ve lo esencial, sí, lo que hemos dicho. Volvemos. Duga 2.
Moscow I. The Duga 2 radar began its work in July 1976. The radar was used to detect the ballistic missiles with the nuclear warheads over the territory of the Soviet Union. It was a part of a missile defense, and its range was more than 3,000 kilometers. Look around and learn about the history and the construction of the radar. Roof of the control room. The system consisted of the two receiving antennas. The smaller one was 90 meters high and 300 meters long, and it covered 14 to 30 MHz range. The larger one was 150 meters high and 500 meters long, range 4 to 14 MHz. The mass of the whole structure was about 14,000 tons, and the construction cost is estimated at $1.5 billion. Training room. Top of the antenna. Is the transmission received by the antenna or standing? The signal disturbed the short connectivity and was called the Russian woodpecker after the disaster of the reactor number 4. Due to the interference caused by the radiation, the Moscow Eye was turned off forever.
Estas son las antenas, la parte de arriba de las antenas.
Training room.
Aquí es donde hemos estado. A ver.
Under the antenna.
Vamos debajo de la antena.
The radar was able to detect the start of ballistic missiles from the northeastern parts of the United States. About 1,000 of specialists were needed to deal with it. The entire installation was top secret, guarded by the Soviet elite Spetsnaz units.
Vale.
Training room. Roof of the control room. Control room.
Control room, no sé si hemos estado.
There are a lot of conspiracy theories about the Moscow Eye. Some say that the antennas were used to cause storms anywhere in the world, and others about manipulating people's minds with the radio waves. No fact supports these theories,
vale, esto es la sala
and the
de
original
control de las
long-range
antenas.
missile detection system of the radar seems to be true.
Donde detectaban, a ver, lo del tema de los misiles y tal, vale.
Training room.
Training room. Aquí hay el hombre de la guía.
We are in a very interesting place called Chernobyl 2. Chernobyl 2, on the internet also called the Moscow Eye, is the biggest over-the-horizon radar in the world. The purpose of the radar was to detect that the strategic or ballistic missiles were fired. It could also detect the enemy planes of the strategic destination.
Pues vaya, ¿no? Con las antenitas que detectaban los
misilacos. It was built in the 70s and launched for tests in 1982.
Fue hecho en los 70 y probado en los 80 y algo.
In 1985, it was ready to work.
En el 85 estaba preparado para funcionar, pero como pasó en el 86 el desastre, pues lo tuvieron que dejar.
An elite regiment stationed here served mostly by the officers. The infrastructure was very good. A town for the officers was built, in which there was a community center, officers' flats, a big gym, a beautiful cinema, and a school. Nearby, there is the city of Chernobyl, and 10 kilometers away, there is the town of Pripyat. All the facilities were here, so that the officers could perfectly do their duties. After the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986, the antenna was contaminated. Secret devices were dismantled and taken away, and the staff was evacuated.
Y la tuvieron que, bueno, lo tuvieron que dejar de hacer uso de ellas.
Now the antenna is a monument of the former Soviet Union, to show that they could afford to build objects of this size.
Y hoy en día no es más que un monumento de la Unión Soviética y ya está.
Let's go further to see another parts of the Duga 2.
Muy bien, pues vamos. Nos va a enseñar más partes. Roof, control Room, Pripyat, Village, Minsk, Flat, Hospital. A ver el hospital cómo quedó. Bueno, pues esto es una sala.
The city hospital in Pripyat was one of the most modern facilities in the area. The complex could fit up to 410 patients, and it consisted of 5 buildings with multiple wards and 3 medical clinics.
Tres clínicas médicas tenía y no sé qué más ha dicho. Bueno, pues muy bien, ¿no? Vamos a Kiev. Kiev, capital de Ucrania.
Do you remember the 26th of April,
vale, están hablando aquí
1986? Was it an ordinary day or a special
¿no?
day?
Sí, lo que sería el alcalde de Kiev. Vitaly Klitschko.
I remember it very well, because my father was alerted very early that day, at about 5 or 6 in the morning, and disappeared for a few days. The next day, I remember there were no buses in Kiev. Later we learned that the buses had been sent to pick up people from the villages near Chernobyl, in particular from the very town of Chernobyl, and to relocate them. I remember that time very well, as there were no information. I remember that 2 days later my father returned and told us not to talk about it, it was a secret, that there had been a major disaster, an explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and that there were dangerous radioactive substances in the air. He suggested that we stay home, not to go out. But despite that, we went to school. They did not call off any activities. There was no official information, but many rumors. It was impossible to buy the train or plane tickets. There was a great panic. Everyone tried to get away from Kiev, to leave, because everyone was afraid. There was no information at all, but there were many rumors about what had happened there. Only then we got more information. I remember the 1st of May, Labor Day. Peace, Labor, May. I marched among school children, here along Kryshetzik. We were all marching, and I was holding the flag of the Soviet Union in my hands. We all had to march, we were monitored. I remember that there was an international bicycle race on the May holiday, and everyone was saying, look, all the foreigners are participating in the competition, and everything is fine, it's all just rumors. I mean, we had no truthful information for a long time. I remember that time very well. My younger brother Volodymyr was sent to Azov Sea to a summer camp. I stayed in Kiev for the whole summer. My father spent all the time, the whole summer, in Chernobyl. He was an Air Force officer, and they were responsible for the evacuation first, then for the machines, and then they extinguished the fire. They had many tasks. Then, many years later, our family paid a great price for the amount of time my father spent there. We could consult the best specialists, physicians, who, having learned that my father was at Chernobyl, said that his cancer was 100% due to the exposure. Chernobyl was a tragedy, and there is no doubt about that. But could you think of anything positive from that time? Could you note at least one positive thing that came from this tragedy? Positive? What can be positive about this tragedy? Millions of people faced this problem. Thousands, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of children and people in general faced the diseases. The number of cancer patients increased dramatically. Many children also had health problems. And knowing that Ukraine was not in a very good condition, no proper social protection, especially healthcare, so we are very grateful to the Poles, Czechs and French and many nations, countries that helped to treat children from Ukraine, Chernobyl children. They helped and are still helping to eliminate the effects of this tragedy, which still continues. The shelter construction is ongoing. We understand that it would be very difficult to do this without the international support. I asked about that because many historians say that the explosion at Chernobyl contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it was one of the causes of its breakup. Wasn't it? I cannot say if it was. I do not believe that the tragedy at Chernobyl resulted in the collapse of the Soviet Union. No, it did not. The Soviet Union had not been operating properly before that time. There were economic threats and many mistakes were made, and one of those mistakes was the consequence of the inefficient system.
Vale, pues dice que un sistema económico ineficaz, ¿no? Con un mantenimiento malo de la central nuclear, ¿no?
But this tragedy, I am sure, had no direct influence on the collapse of the Soviet Union.
En que pasara el desastre. You said that your father was involved in mitigating the effects of the explosion. Did he tell you anything about it? Do you have any memories of it? He told me a lot. It was a threat that no one saw. This threat was associated with the need to eliminate the effects of the accident, to relocate the people and carry out the deactivation. Those issues were paid a lot of attention. It was necessary to determine the boundaries. Much work was done at that time, and it had to be done very quickly. Moreover, there had never been such a big problem in the human history before, so unfortunately many mistakes were made, and those mistakes cost people their life. Minsk. For me as a person who is making this film, it is very important to know. In your Chernobyl prayer, you write much about time, the importance of time, about what is going to come, and about what has already happened. Please tell me, what is exactly a catastrophe of time to you?
О важности времени, о том, что будет и о том, что было. Скажите, чем именно для вас есть катастрофа времени?
Ну, катастрофа времени в том, что
A catastrophe of time is that, for example, in 4 days, the Chernobyl cloud was already over Africa. That's the first issue. And the second is that there are a lot of radionuclides there. Some of them live 10 years, which means they are already dead, while others 100 years. And there are some that will live 2,000 to 3,000 years. And in terms of us, humans, it is a catastrophe of time. We cannot comprehend it. It's impossible to imagine how it is. And there are still hot particles that appear because some radionuclides connect with each other. These ones are eternal. Even people who will be just sunbathing on the planet Earth in this place one day, or they will build a new home in this place, as it always happens. The cemetery is ruined, and a new house is built in its place. And if this particle is raised up into the air, people will inhale it and get slowly destroyed. It means death. These particles are immortal. Amusement park. A Ferris wheel was supposed to be the biggest attraction of the amusement park. 20 gondolas were to carry up to 80 people. They could have admired the panoramic view of the city at 20 meters. Guide. On the 1st of May 1986, the town was supposed to host a significant event. The town first amusement park was going to be opened. I believe that for such a small town, which already had a solid infrastructure, the opening of the park was very important. Also because there were so many children in the town. And of course, on Saturdays and Sundays, people would be able to just go there and have fun. There was a Ferris wheel, swings, roundabouts, and even bumper cars, which you can drive and bump into other cars. There was a center nearby, where people could go and have a coffee, a snack or lunch, or spend a good time with their kids. But the tragedy of the 26th of April damaged all these plans, and on the 27th of April, the entire town was evacuated. Right now we can see all that's left of this park. There are rumors that the amusement park was opened shortly after the explosion to distract people from the disaster. But no one can confirm this information, and the preserved archival materials indicate that only a trial test was run before the scheduled opening.
Volvemos a Pripyat. Bueno chicos, pues nada, espero que hayáis aprendido un poco más de lo que no sabíais antes de empezar. Seguiremos con FIFA y Gran Turismo, que sale ahora en breve, lo tenemos ya, Gran Turismo GT. Así que nada, haremos unos gameplays y tal. Nos vemos en los siguientes. ¡Hasta ahora!